And now we're being joined by Jan Orlovsky, former director of Migration Office, Slovak Interior Ministry. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Right, so, this important step by Georgia Meloni, but I wanted to take a step back and take a look at some of the EU policies, because I believe that the migration policies were last amended just, last month, right? Mid-May. So I wonder how effective these amendments are. Because it seems that Italy is going on its own, right, and sort of trying to make sure that it will deal with the problem. So if you could shed more light on this, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The new Migration and Asylum Pact, which has been approved by the European Parliament, still has to be approved by individual countries and will come to its fruition next year. And it deals only with 30,000 migrants a year, which is not a great number when you look at the overall European number moving around 400 to 500,000 a year. So it basically, even the Migration Pact deals with only 10% of the problem. Even in Italy, we heard from Marek in a very well organized segment that it has basically two layers. One is humanitarian layer, and the other one is a political one. And of course, Italy, Spain, Greece, Germany, France has been under tremendous migration pressure, and that also causes political pressure in these countries. Therefore, they have to look for solutions, and one of them is externalization of migration in a way which concerns primarily migrants who would not qualify for something what we call international protection, which is the border of each country's sexual persecution or religious persecution. So these are more or less so-called economic migrants who are basically facing economic hardships in their countries, but that unfortunately doesn't fall under the jurisdiction of the Geneva Convention. Therefore, the numbers are growing and probably will grow even more with the climate crises around the world. So the countries who are under pressure from the south are looking for solutions anywhere they can find it.
Right, so Rome seems to now be speeding up the construction of migrant camps in Albania, and I'm wondering, how do Italians approach this issue? I'm pretty sure that some would say that this reception center would be rather a deportation center for migrants seeking asylum in Italy. Then on the other hand, it's Georgia Meloni's government, and she has a backing from her voters. So what's the internal situation in Italy?
Mm-hmm. We will definitely hear from international and domestic human rights organizations who will portray the issue exactly in a way you did. And from the position of a migrant, I think they are better off in a center which is clean and organized and actually has the facilities, rather than staying on a beach or somewhere in the woods around Italy. I'm not really sure about to what extent Italy has domestic capacities to handle this many migrants. But on the side of Albania, politically, it's a great advantage for them. They will definitely have Italian support for their bid for EU. On the other hand, it's also an economic boost. We heard several hundred million euros will be spent on building the center. And more or less, it provides jobs to supply companies around in Albania. So politically as well as economically, it makes sense for Albania. And also, we should not forget, the Albanians are grateful for Italians not turning them away in the early 90s, when thousands of Albanians were leaving the country to go to exactly Italy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right, so I guess this mechanism is also meant to deter, right, some migrants from trying to come to Europe. But other policies were introduced, or other solutions, right, were tried out before. For instance, Georgia Meloni, I believe, with Ursula von der Leyen, had this deal with Tunisia at some point. They also gave them some money to stop the migrants. Recently, Ursula von der Leyen was also in Lebanon, right, So, why
exactly.
are these not working? Because I presume they're not working, or are they working to some extent?
I mean, the capacities of I would mention probably the political capacities first and foremost. People in the countries of the south, as well as in Germany and France, are rattled by, the increased violence of people coming of different people who are of different color. Unfortunately, this is not caused by those who are freshly arriving from somewhere. It's usually second or third generation of migrants who are actually already citizens. But politically, it's unsustainable for them to keep having so many migrants who will actually not qualify for international protection, such as asylum or any other form of international protection. So they are looking for ways how to deal with this. One of them is, of course, helping other countries who are the source of the crisis, that is Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and other places. But again, you work with unstable governments in many ways, and even if you send money over, they are not really well spent. So people keep coming, and the big issue here is also the issue of deportation. So once you do not qualify for asylum or any other way of staying in the country, such as Italy, the question is, will the country where they came from take back those who arrived? In case of my country, Slovakia, we've had that issue with Hungary since 2015. The so-called readmission treaty did not work with them or has not been working for years. Therefore, even if we say these people definitely came from Hungary, if the Hungary puts the hands up and says we are not taking them, you are still stuck with the people who are then left in your country. In this case, it will be Albania. And then maybe people will decide, okay, we'll run away from Albania to other countries because we're on the other side of the Adriatic now.
So it's basically no solution.
It is at least a political, for Mrs. Meloni, it's a political solution, definitely, because she shows that she is doing action. She's trying to do her best to keep it in some kind of a human rights framework and humanitarian framework, saying if we are too overcrowded, we are building new capacities in Albania, which of course they could build in Italy as well if they are spending money. But in this way, it is also showing her voters that not all the foreigners will qualify to stay in Italy, and we are taking them away from the country as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Good.
Okay. There's another issue which our colleague Marek Steele pointed to during his presentation, that 36,000 people are to be admitted to these migrant camps in Albania, while only last year almost twice this number tried to enter Italy. So do you think that in the near future the Adriatic coast of Albania will be spotted with Italian migrant camps?
It really depends on Albanian political leadership how many of these camps they are willing to build. But overall, for EU, I think the big issue is, are we really addressing the crisis the way it should be? I mean, definitely I can speak for my country. We've been not very helpful in the joint effort, and the whole Visegrad 4 has been very reluctant to join these efforts. For us, the first wake-up call was the war in Ukraine, when thousands of Ukrainians came over. But again, from political point of view, it was much easier to deal with than when you deal with people from the countries of Africa or Asia, where you do not really have the cultural or language complicity, I would say. So for Europe, these crises will not go away, and I think we should really pay more attention, as much as we pay to climate change. Migration is, I think, in maybe number 2 big challenge of Europe in the next upcoming decades.
Some would say it's definitely number 1.
Jan Orlovsky, thank you, sir, for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Good night.